Beneath your feet, millions of ants may be running farms you never knew existed. Imagine discovering a hidden underground city where thousands of tiny workers move through tunnels, carry leaves, defend entrances, remove waste, and somehow produce their own food. Sounds like science fiction, right? But this incredible world is real, and leafcutter ants are the farmers behind it. Leafcutter ants don't actually eat the leaves they carry. That's the shocking part. Instead, they use those leaves as raw material to grow something much more valuable, a specialized fungus. Their entire colony revolves around maintaining this underground fungal farm. Workers cut pieces of leaves from plants, carry them back to the nest, and deliver them to other ants. The leaves are processed and incorporated into carefully maintained gardens where fungus grows. That fungus becomes a major food source for the colony. So how can an insect with a tiny brain organize a farming operation involving thousands, or even millions, of individuals? The answer is one of nature's most fascinating examples of teamwork, communication, and biological organization. Here's where the operation begins. High above the underground farm, leafcutter ants search for suitable vegetation. When a worker finds a useful plant, it doesn't simply grab a random piece and run home. The ants cut surprisingly precise pieces from leaves using their powerful jaws. One ant may carry a fragment many times larger than its own body. From a human perspective, it's like carrying a piece of furniture several times your own size. But here's something even more interesting. Not every ant performs exactly the same job. Leafcutter colonies contain workers of different sizes, and those differences can be extremely useful. Larger workers may travel farther from the nest and handle cutting or carrying, while smaller workers can perform other tasks inside the colony. As the ants travel along established trails, their movement can look almost like miniature highways. Thousands of individuals may repeatedly travel between the nest and vegetation. And they're not carrying those leaves home for dinner. They're delivering building material for a farm. Now follow that leaf underground. The surface trail leads toward a nest entrance that may look surprisingly ordinary. But beneath it can be an intricate network of chambers and tunnels. As the leaves enter the colony, other workers take over. The material is processed and prepared for the fungus. This is where the ants' farming system becomes truly extraordinary. The colony isn't simply dumping leaves into a pile and hoping something grows. The ants actively maintain their fungal gardens. They manipulate the growing material, remove unwanted material, control contamination, and maintain conditions that allow their cultivated fungus to thrive. Think about that for a moment. Humans developed agriculture thousands of years ago. Leafcutter ants developed their own form of agriculture millions of years before modern human farming. And their farm isn't sitting under sunlight with tractors and irrigation systems. It's hidden in darkness, inside a network of tunnels, managed by insects, and powered by teamwork. The real star of the operation isn't the ant. It's the fungus. Leafcutter ants have developed a remarkable relationship with particular cultivated fungi. The ants provide plant material and carefully maintain the growing environment, while the fungus provides nutritious food for the colony. This relationship is known as mutualism because both partners benefit. But maintaining a fungus garden isn't easy. The colony has to protect its food source from unwanted organisms that could compete with or damage the cultivated fungus. That means the ants have to constantly manage their underground gardens. Workers clean, groom, transport material, and remove unwanted waste. It's almost like having an underground agricultural workforce where every employee has a role. And the most fascinating part? No single ant appears to be sitting in a command room telling everyone what to do. There isn't an ant CEO shouting instructions. Instead, the colony's organization emerges from countless simple interactions. This might be the biggest mystery. If thousands of ants are working simultaneously, how does the colony avoid complete chaos? The answer isn't a single master plan. Ant colonies rely heavily on chemical signals, physical interactions, environmental cues, and instinctive behaviors. Individual ants respond to what's happening immediately around them. One ant encounters a situation, reacts, and influences another ant. That interaction can trigger another response, and thousands of these tiny decisions combine into surprisingly complex colony behavior. It's called self-organization. Imagine a stadium filled with thousands of people where nobody has a microphone, nobody has a manager, and yet everyone somehow contributes to keeping the entire system functioning. That's roughly the kind of phenomenon scientists find so fascinating about social insects. The individual ant follows relatively simple rules. But together, those simple rules can produce an incredibly sophisticated society. Every farm produces waste, and the leafcutter colony is no exception. As the fungus grows and the colony processes enormous amounts of plant material, waste accumulates. But allowing waste to remain near the food-growing areas could create serious problems. So the ants have another job: waste management. Workers transport unwanted material away from important areas of the nest. In some leafcutter species, specialized workers handle waste and help keep refuse areas separated from the cultivated gardens. This separation is incredibly important. Food goes one way. Waste goes another. Workers move through the nest performing different tasks, creating a system that looks remarkably similar to a carefully organized human settlement. And that gives us an important clue about why these colonies can become so successful. They're not just collecting food. They're managing an entire ecosystem inside their nest. Imagine spending all day growing your food, only to have another organism invade and destroy it. That's exactly the kind of problem leafcutter ants face. Their fungal gardens can attract unwanted microbes and other organisms. The ants therefore have to protect the farm they depend on. Workers constantly interact with the garden and each other, helping maintain cleanliness. The colony also has specialized behaviors that help limit threats to their cultivated fungus. But defense doesn't stop inside the nest. Leafcutter colonies can have workers responsible for defending trails and responding to disturbances. The colony essentially has farmers, cleaners, transport workers, waste managers, and defenders, all operating within the same superorganism-like society. And this is where leafcutter ants become more than just insects carrying leaves. They're running a miniature civilization. Deep inside the colony is one individual with a completely different role, the queen. But it's important not to imagine her as a human-style ruler giving orders to thousands of ants. Her primary biological role is reproduction. The colony's workers perform the tasks necessary to keep the nest functioning, while the queen produces offspring that replace and expand the workforce. This creates an extraordinary division of labor. Some ants spend their lives outside collecting leaves. Others remain underground. Some tend the fungus. Some handle waste. Others defend the colony. And the queen focuses on reproduction. Different individuals performing different tasks allow the entire colony to operate as one highly coordinated system. It's almost as if the colony itself is the organism, and each ant is one specialized. Now step back and look at the entire system. A leafcutter colony is not simply thousands of individual ants living together. It behaves like a highly integrated society where individual actions contribute to a larger system. One ant cuts a leaf. Another carries it. Another processes it. Another tends the fungus. Another removes waste. Another protects the colony. And another cares for developing young. No single ant needs to understand the entire operation. That's what makes the system so incredible. Complexity doesn't always require a complicated individual. Sometimes, complexity emerges when thousands of simple individuals interact in the right way. Leafcutter ants have essentially created an agricultural system underground, with food production, transportation, sanitation, defense, and reproduction all connected. And they've been doing it for an astonishingly long time. So the next time you see a tiny line of ants carrying pieces of leaves across the ground, don't just think of them as insects carrying food. You're looking at workers supplying an underground agricultural system. Those leaves aren't necessarily their meal. They're part of a process that helps the colony cultivate fungus. And that fungus helps feed the colony. Workers maintain the gardens. Other workers manage waste. Others defend the nest. Others care for young. And the entire system emerges from thousands of individual ants responding to their environment and to one another. That's the truly mind-blowing lesson. You don't need one giant brain to create something intelligent looking. Sometimes, nature creates intelligence through cooperation. A tiny ant follows a tiny set of rules. Another ant does the same. Then another. And another. Until, beneath the forest floor, those tiny decisions become something much bigger. A living agricultural empire.